Yo, what up? It's your boy 410 Josh back in the building. Glad to see y'all back. We back off of Monday, hot topic, so we back for Throwback Thursday, as usual. So, as usual, if you haven't done so already, go to my YouTube page, 410 Josh, hip-hop _4123. Subscribe to that page, like, share, comment. We can chop it up, interact on the internet, or you hit me on the inbox, or you just want to chop it up. You got some music you want to send me, got questions you want to ask, or even any advice you want to send me. So we back here for Throwback Thursday. As usual, we got a classic album for the females, classic album for the males. So I think y'all gonna be really going to be surprised with this one, because I got two albums. Now, these two albums, I'm going to tell you, these aren't debut albums. They're actually each artist's third album. But these albums were definitely classics. So the first one with the ladies we're going to start off with is the legendary and great Foxy Brown. Her album Broken Silence, which dropped in 2001. And that's crazy, because that album is now 22 years old. So Foxy Brown dropped Broken Silence, which was her third album. At that time, it was like her comeback album, because she had been going through so much between legal issues and record label issues, and now she had popped back up on the scene with this album. So before we get into that album, I'm going to tell you how I first heard about Foxy Brown. So Foxy Brown, as you all know, if you know me, I'm a lifelong hip hop head. So I heard her, of course, on Jay-Z's first single, Ain't No Nigga, off of Reasonable Doubt. And the first time I heard her, I was like, damn, her voice is kind of different. For a female, she had a very deep voice, but still really feminine and sexy, because it's like her voice just drew you in. It's like, okay, I like her. And then her flow, just the way she was rhyming, was just so on point. So, I had got her first album, El Nana, and I was like, okay, this is definitely a banger. China Doll, and her second album, was like, okay, this is definitely a banger. A little different, tried a little experimental things. But Broken Silence, for me, is her magnum opus as an album. Like, that album is it. Like, I was already a fan, but when she dropped Broken Silence, I'm like, yeah, she's definitely a legend. And that, to me, really solidified her as a top 5 female artist of all time. So that's how I found out about her. And when Broken Silence dropped, wow. You had the classic single, BK Anthem, just the way the beat came on, and then she jumped in. Let me tell you where I grew up at. Sip Mo blew up that. Flip Coat blew up that. Where them fake Doug got the investors chewed up that. Brooklyn beef, who want that? It's like, enough said. Enough said. She didn't have to say nothing else. That hook was enough. She could have rhymed the alphabet in the rest of her bars. That hook was enough to just keep that song going. She had bangers on there, like Candy with Khalees, with the females. She had Oh Yeah with Sprague Benz, and everybody know Foxy Brown's Caribbean, so her style just meshed well. Her whole style just meshed well with the production at the time. She had everybody from Rockwell to Dave Kelly, Robert Kirkland, the Neptunes. She had one of my favorite songs, one of the most personal records on that album, was called The Letter, featuring Ron Isley. Everything about that album that's like the blueprint for a comeback album. And she had went deaf. She had problems with her, with her record label. They didn't want to put her out. They kept shelving her music. She had all of these, like she had an album prior to that called Black Roses that got shelved. People didn't even, like the label didn't even want to support her. Then of course everybody knows she had a lot of legal issues, got into a lot of fights and a lot of, squabbles with people. But when she dropped that album, I mean, this was like the big payback. Like you knew what you were getting with that album. So, shout out Foxy Brown. I mean, she's definitely a legend. One of our most influential artists. Right there, if you want to put her, I would put her on the Mount Rushmore for female hip hop artists. Definitely next to Lil' Kim, definitely next to Queen Latifah, MC Lyte, and anybody else that you want to interchange. But, Foxy, she paved the way for a lot of artists, especially like a Nicki Minaj, who personally said that the Broken Silence album was one of her biggest influences on rap. So, if you haven't checked that album out, please do yourself a service because you will not be disappointed. Even when I do these, when I do Throwback Thursdays, I always go back and listen to that album. And when I was listening to it, I'm like, yeah, this even sounds as fresh as it did then because the production it's like she made this album to be a classic. So, again, shout out Foxy Brown, Broken Silence. That was her third album. She dropped in 2001. Where is she now? She makes, sporadic, guest appearances on shows. And she was definitely on Nas's first King Disease album with The Firm. We haven't heard any music recently. I ain't gonna say recently. It's been a while. She did have an underground album called Brooklyn Don Diva. That was okay. I'm gonna say it was okay. I think it was it sounded more like a compilation of unreleased songs, but it wasn't like a trash album. But if you can find it out there, look for that Brooklyn Don Diva mixtape. She hasn't done a lot of recent music and worked with a lot of artists. So the only thing we can probably assume is that she's just, trying to live a regular, normal life. She definitely made a lot of money, and so she probably got businesses and, happy being off the scenes or come back on the scene when she wants to. So the second album I'm going to get into is this group's third album, and this is one of my all-time favorite albums, is Outkast, Aquemini. This album we about to get into. Wow. And it's funny that, I picked this album given that tomorrow Andre 3000 finally releases his solo album, New Blue Moon. But Outkast, Aquemini, wow, this album dropped in 99. Man, this album was so ahead of its time. But let me get into how I found out about Outkast. So Outkast came out in the early 90s. I want to say 92, 93. Now, I'm sorry, not 92, 94. They came out with their first album, Southern Playlistic Cadillac Music. The first song I heard from them was Ain't No Thing. And I thought it was just, okay, that was a dope record. It was cool. But when I heard the other song, Crumbling Herb, I was blown. I was like, I'm a fan now. I'm definitely a fan. And of course, everybody knows Andre 3000's infamous speech on the Source Awards saying the South got something to say and people didn't want to hear their records, but they was here to stay and they got something to say. Well, from that day forward, Outkast began to solidify themselves as arguably the top 5 maybe even top 3 best hip hop group of all time. Most people will debate, but it's a very hard debate. I'm going to be honest with you, because Outkast made it a point in their career to separate themselves. That's why the name is Outkast, because they want to outside of everybody else. So when Aquemini dropped, I mean, this album was so ahead of its time. I mean, every album was different, but this one was like, are these dudes even from this planet? Like, I mean, you had Outkast, the self-titled album, the self-titled track. Rosa Parks, the controversial single, but you know, it was just a real funky, groovy song that had a catch to it and a message. You had the art of storytelling. You had Skewing on the Barbie with Raekwon, one of my favorite songs. You had Mamacita, and you had Liberation. It was just, I mean, joint after joint after joint. I mean, everybody from Raekwon, Erykah Badu, Goody Mob. They had George Clinton on the album with synthesizer. I mean, the album was so cohesive and so musically mastered. It's hard to argue that it's not a top 10 greatest hip hop album of all time. I remember it was a big deal when they got 5 mics in the Source magazine. In 90s babies, y'all remember this. If you were in the Source magazine and your favorite artist got 5 mics, you knew instantly. That 5 mics meant if you don't have this album, something's wrong with you. Because this album is a classic. It was deemed a classic. Till this day, if you play Aquemini, you're not skipping a record. You're not. I don't care who you are. I mean, from the intro, Return of the G, down to the last song, you're not skipping a song. Liberation is probably my favorite one because it's just, again, so musically, ahead of the time. I mean, you're talking about arrangement from strings to percussions to guitars to kalimbas. Nobody back in the 90s was even using a kalimba. So it's like it was definitely one of the best albums of all time. Where personally it impacted me because it helped me to expand my musical taste in hip hop, because I always grew up on boom bap, scratching the turntables, but Outkast helped me broaden my musical ear to head. Like, hip hop can be musical, it can be melodic, so it was like, wow. It definitely is one of those albums. It's a must-have if you're a music collector. Like, if you're a connoisseur, you definitely have to have this album, because it will tell most people, like, okay, you really listen to things outside the box. Now where Outkast is now, Big Boy and Andre kind of, you could say they kind of split. Big Boy has had a solo career. He's dropped several solo projects. The last project he had was called The Big Sleepover with Sleepy Brown, which is a very dope project, but it, went underrated. They had, later on down the line, they did Idlewild, the movie and the soundtrack. And Andre, like I said, is now dropping his new album tomorrow, New Blue Moon, which is actually going to be a instrumental ambient album with playing the flute. Now, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'm gonna just speak this piece, because I know this is Throwback Thursday, and I want to talk about Aquemini, but I do want to speak on this, given that we're on the eve of this release. I'm an Outkast fan. I'm an Andre 3000 fan, and I'm a musical fan. So I am going to support the album. I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to, give it a fair listen and a thorough listening. But I can honestly say, when I heard he was dropping the album, I was like, oh, he better not be playing. He better not be trolling. Like, because we've been waiting for this too long. And then when it went viral, it was like, okay, yeah, it's really coming. So now I'm like, finally. Then when I seen it's going to be a flute, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Now, don't get me wrong. I like music. I like the flute. But for an artist that we really have been looking for at least 20 years, we have been waiting to get an Andre 3000 album. We got The Love Below. Now, I give him that. We got The Love Below, which was musically, which was a musical range from rap to pop to R&B to classic to jazz. But we got, music and we got vocals. This Andre 3000 album has no vocals, has no bars, has no melody. It's just all flute ambient music. And I'm not going to lie, I was crushed. I was like, what? We're not going to get no bar. Nothing? Not a Big Boy feature? Not a CeeLo feature? Nothing? Not a Sleepy Brown hook? No. Just the flute. So, yeah. But, definitely get back to talking about Aquemini. Yeah, the personal impact on me, it just, again, it broadened my musical ears. So I was really happy, when that album dropped. It stayed in rotation. I still play it time to time. But it definitely broadened my musical ear. So definitely want to give my flowers to Foxy Brown for her album Broken Silence. And definitely give Outkast their flowers for Aquemini. So now we about to hop on this live, see what everybody's talking about. Shout y'all out for coming in. All right. As always, the lovely Lynette Stevens in the building. Thank you again for your support. Okay. Foxy Brown need to make another album. Ain't No Ninja was a classic. Absolutely. Ain't No Ninja was a classic. It's like her verse. Most people would even debate that she had a better verse than Jay-Z. But that definitely was a classic. Okay. My cousin Tony in the building. Thanks, cuz, in the building. My cousin Eric in the building. Thanks, cuz, coming in. Bill Schwartz. Thanks, Bill, for coming in. Thanks for the support. Let's see. Who else we got? Okay. Let's see. Okay, my man Quan Newalk in the building. Thanks again, homie, for the support. Meditation Elevator album on the way. Yeah, that's what it's looking like, bro, because it really is looking like that. And like I said, I was so like, you gotta be kidding me. You made us wait all this long for a flute, bro. Really? That's how I felt. I hope not. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, unfortunately, Lynette, it does appear that way. So, let's see. I don't want to make sure I skip anybody. Well, I hate to break it to you. Yeah, give it a chance. Yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a chance. I'm definitely going, give it a listen. But just as a Andre 3000 fan, like I had him in my top 15 greatest rappers of all time, of any era. But to not get any bars was like heart-wrenching. So, let's see. Okay. Looks like we got everybody, I thank all y'all again for y'all support coming out on the live. I do take a lot of time and I really appreciate y'all support. So as always, we're going to be back tomorrow with our Friday album releases and reviews. So make sure again, you go to 410 Josh, hiphop_4123, hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment. I will see y'all tomorrow for Friday releases and album reviews.